When you embed a project into the timeline of another project, you essentially take an entirely fully edited project or an entirely fully edited movie and tell another project to treat that project file as if it were a single event, as if it were an actual media file or a finished media file. The advantage to this is it allows you to create individual scenes or complicated special effects sequences as separate projects and then add them to another project as if they were a single media clip. And I'll show you how to do that. We have here on our timeline just a little brief movie that I made, and I'm going to open another instance of the program. You can have several instances of Vegas open at the same time. And to do that, I will relaunch Vegas, even though it's already open, and launch it a second time here, so that I have two instances, or I have Vegas open twice on my computer. And I'm going to open up a file I have in the works here, 502A. And to this project, I'm going to add, I'll move my playhead to the very end here. I'm going to add not a media file, but I'm going to add the project file for my other instance of Vegas. Now, you don't necessarily have to have these open at the same time. I'm just doing it to demonstrate something to you. We'll go to my other Vegas project, make sure that it's saved. Now we'll come back to the second Vegas project, and I'm going to use the import media option or the import media tool, and I'm going to go to 502. So again, I'm not selecting a media file. I'm actually selecting the 0502 project file. And when I open it, you notice the program will interpret it, it will conform it, and there it appears in my project media panel as if it were a media file. But if I were to open it, say in my trimmer, and I were to play it, you'd see that it is my edited file. It is my edited project, complete with titles and cuts and whatever I did to mix music in there also. And when I add it to my timeline, I'll just drag it right down here, I can treat it like a single media file. Isn't that cool? Now, if I were to go back here to my original file, and I were to make a change to it, say I were to add another scene to it, add another clip to it like that, and I'm just going to trim this down so that it's the same length as it was before, and I'll save it again, and we go back to our second movie, it will update automatically, or it will refresh, and the project that I saved over there, the edited project, the new edits to my project, will now appear on my timeline. Now, if this doesn't happen, and sometimes it doesn't, here's a little trick. Just go up here and minimize this instance of Vegas, and then open it back up again. There. Did you see it? It refreshed that time. You could see just that little conforming screen show up for a second. And now the edit that I made to this one has been updated. So this is very cool. You don't have to output a finished scene and then use those outputs and mix them together into a final mix. You can actually use project files as media. So you can create a lot of scenes separately, and then you can combine them together in sort of a master mix. Now, one thing that I want to warn you about, if when you edit one project, so for instance, if I come back here, to my first project, if editing this project changes the length of the project, be aware that when you go back to your second project and I refresh it, notice that I get that little notch in there. This is because the project file is not as long as the event on the timeline. Okay, we changed the length of the project file. If that happens, you just want to make sure that you're never beyond that little notch, so you might have to resize it. But any updates you make to your project, when you save them, they will refresh in the project where you're using that original project file as your media file. Now, there are a number of advantages to working on a project like this. In fact, it's a way professionals edit commercial and Hollywood movies. Instead of trying to do every single effect, every single graphic, every single composition shot in the same movie on the same timeline, you work on it in small pieces, and then you assemble all these completed segments as timelines embedded within timelines in a final mixdown of your big project.